Hey guys, welcome back. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. Today I wanted to talk about everything that's going on with the ATF determination on handguns, pistols, and all the implications there, as well as I wanted to go into sort of a correction on a lot of the comments that I have seen made about what is going on, as well as give some of my thoughts. So if that sounds interesting to you, please stick around. That's coming up now. Okay, so on this channel, I tend to stay away from talking about issues like this, but this is really a big one. It is a bombshell that came from the ATF. Of course, a lot of you guys know about, as a lot of people in the 2A community have been putting out videos and publications around what is going on with the ATF and the new determination on what exactly is a handgun. Okay, so just to give a quick recap, and again, this information is available ad nauseum already in a lot of different places, but the ATF has come out with a determination on what exactly constitutes a handgun. It's specifically, right now, the focus is on imported pistols. So, as it currently stands, there is a point system that needs to be met with firearms or handguns specifically that are imported into the country. It's a 75-point system, and those points are achieved by basically having things like target sights, certain caliber offerings, things like that. The imported firearm is submitted for review or for acceptance to be imported into the country. The ATF agents make a determination on whether or not that particular design exceeds those 75 points, and if it does, it can come into the country. Okay, other than that, there really haven't been any type of determining sort of specifications on what a handgun is in terms of weight, size, caliber, barrel length, or anything along those lines until right now. So the ATF has come out and is basically saying handguns cannot exceed a certain weight. They can't be chambered in rifle calibers like 5.56, 7.62 by 39, and they cannot have a barrel length that exceeds, a pistol length, whatever really that means. It cannot be a rifle length barrel, 20 inches, 18 inches. So basically, a lot of people, and I've been seeing this in comments and other commentary on this, a lot of people are saying, okay, well, the ATF can't come out and create new laws, and that's exactly true. They cannot come out and create new laws, but that is not what's happening here, and that is also not what happened with the bump stocks. So if we go back and take a look at laws and see how they are interpreted by bureaucracies, basically, and I believe that this alludes to the Administrative Procedures Act of the late 1940s. Basically, the government is so large that ruling bodies like the legislative branch, the administrative branches, Congress, and the presidency cannot actually nitpick and make small determinations on laws that are passed in every facet of life, be it tax, agricultural, environmental, firearms, drugs, food. So what they typically do is they create laws that are passed. 1968 GCA, the 1994 assault weapons ban, the 1989 import ban, the 1936 NFA, to name a few. So they take those laws that are passed. They are generally very vague in nature. They pass them on to the bureaucracies that preside over that facet of what the law is covering, and they leave it up to that department or that bureaucracy to determine or interpret different terminology definitions to see what does and what doesn't fall within the purview of those laws. If we go back to the bump stock ban, that was not a law that was passed by the ATF to ban bump stocks. What it was is a determination by the ATF that bump stocks fit within the NFA, which was a series of laws that were passed in 1936. Again, ATF didn't pass the 1936 NFA. It was, the legislative branches of government, Congress, and then the president. If we take a look at what's going on now, that's exactly what's happened. It's a redetermination of what a handgun is, and then that's, of course, falling into the purview of different laws, again, with the NFA being AOW, and I'm going to explain all this, being AOWs, any other weapons, and then they will be controlled going forward in that regard, as well as what can be imported into the country, things that don't have a sporting purpose, 1989 ban on things like that as well. Now, when the bump stock ban did come across, this is exactly, I had mentioned, I don't believe on these videos, maybe on the other channel, but the problem here wasn't necessarily the banning of the bump stock. I personally had no interest in bump stocks. I do believe that American people who own them had a right to own them, and I didn't want them to be banned. But it wasn't really the banning of, or the reclassification of bump stocks that led to their banning in the first place that really bothered me. It was the process that they went about doing it. So Bump stocks weren't banned because they, struck a pen and said bump stocks are banned. Like I said, they reclassified bump stocks as machine guns, and because of the 1986 GCA, no new machine guns could be manufactured for the consumer market post 1986. Therefore, bump stocks all were produced post 1986, therefore they were banned. You couldn't own them. They were in violation of the NFA or the GCA, whichever way you want to look at it. Now, the implications that is having here is by simply redefining what a handgun is with a rifle caliber, with the barrel length, with the overall weight, that stops certain things from being imported like IWI Galil Ace pistols, the Draco pistols, things along that vein that are coming through importation. Also, a lot of companies like the San Swiss guns that had come in, like the PE90s and other subvariants of that, would come into the country as handguns without shoulder stocks and with long barrels, in order to get around the sporting clause on rifles. And then once they were here in the country, people could put braces or stocks or whatever they wanted to put on them. I know the FN SCAR had come through about that way as well. With this new determination on handguns, it puts a total stop to those types of imports. Now, what does that mean for people who currently own those firearms? What they are doing, and I alluded to this a second ago, is they're going to make them AOWs. An AOW in any other weapon is an NFA-controlled firearm. You have to submit a tax stamp. It is only $5, and that's the term that's going to be used a lot by the media. It's only $5. Well, there's way more implications that go into it than that. When you put these firearms into the subcategory of the NFA, it's not just the $5. You will have to submit an application for an AOW Form 4, pay your $5, and then you're going to have to wait under the current waiting times for about a year for it to be approved before you can pick it up from your dealer. Or I am assuming what they're going to do is people who own them currently will be able to submit an application on an AOW, probably able to keep them while that processes, and then it'll be registered as an AOW. It causes a couple concerns. One is it is a registry. The NFA is a registry, so they will know what you have and where it is. Okay, some people care about that, some people don't. That's up to you. The other more damning thing that this does is it creates really long wait times that people have to wait to get these firearms. Currently, like I said, the wait time is about a year, and that right now just includes machine guns, suppressors, AOWs as they currently exist, like the Caribou shotgun is an AOW. There's not very many AOWs on the market. Street Sweeper is an AOW. And then current SBRs, an actual pistol-length firearm that has a shoulder stock on it, if you will. So, if we take all of the pistols that are owned by people and their form submissions on AOWs, and there's probably millions of different pistols, AR, AK, Galils, the new Bren 2 MS pistols, things like that. Think about the workload and the strain that that's going to put on the NFA branch of the ATF. Are they going to hire thousands of new agents to help process those forms? Probably not. That'll probably push wait times on things back 2 or 3 years. That also affects you if you like suppressors, if you like SBRs, if you like machine guns. You're going to have to get in line behind all those people too. So that's obviously going to affect also businesses that sell those items. There's going to be far fewer people who are going to come in willing to buy a suppressor or an SBR or a machine gun when they have to front the cash and then wait 2 to 3 years for their form to be approved because of all the AOWs that are now in process with the NFA. The other thing too is only NFA dealers, Class 3, Class 7 manufacturers, can deal in NFA items, which means that'll stop your ability to go into a gun store and pick out an AR or an AK pistol if those gun dealers are not NFA dealers. So, like in our area, I think most of us in this area, kind of central Indiana, are NFA dealers, but there are a lot of dealers that are not. The dealer does have to pay an annual $500 tax to deal in NFA items. And also the complication arises when you want to sell an AR or an AK pistol. You're going to have to sit there and do about 30 to 40 minutes of paperwork with the customer, again, mail off those forms, and then the gun store is going to have to sit on that inventory for, again, potentially 2-3 years while it gets processed by the ATF for those people to come in and pick it up. You like to buy, for people who like SBRs, one cool way that people could get their SBR while having possession of the base gun. So you want an AK SBR, you go buy a Draco. you can keep the Draco. You submit a Form 1, which is a application to manufacture, an SBR, and that 6 months to a year while it's processing, you get to keep and enjoy that Draco pistol while you wait for that Form 1 to approve. Well, before you get that Draco pistol, you have to do a Form 4 for your AOW, so you're going to have to wait, again, potentially 2-3 years to get that. Then once you have the gun, you can file your Form 1 and wait another 2 or 3 years for that to approve, so it could potentially turn into this endless amount of time before you get the item. So you're kind of seeing the domino effect here. If this is a perfect example of what death by 1,000 paper cuts looks like when it comes to gun control. Instead of just banning AR and AK pistols or SBRs or machine guns or things like that, they pile on in this way to make it so cumbersome, so difficult, so time consuming, and so expensive that people just don't do it. Now, you know who's going to get an AR or an AK pistol and not care about any of that is going to be felons, of course. So they are usually the ones not affected by these laws. Now, I'm not trying to make a doom and gloom type of video, freak out and panic, but these are the implications that come from political moves like this, and this is a political move in my opinion, by bureaucracies under the government. Keep in mind, the ATF is also under the control of the Justice Department under Bill Barr. So there are provisions there for people to put out and to say, stop this from happening. People in higher places of government, again, I don't want to get too political, but here we are and this is what's happening. The final thing that is troubling about this, Trump put out an executive order to stop bureaucracies from making determinations and redefining terms. What the ATF has done is they have made an indeterminate definitional change to handguns to basically say, okay, these new provisions that have been set forth are rolling. They're going to continue to be changed and reinterpreted. Therefore, it somehow mitigates the executive order that had been taken place. If the executive order is lifted, it can just be put as a new law or new determination. And then moving forward, those are the new regulations that we have to, as gun owners, follow under. Now keep in mind, I've also seen this comment on a lot of videos. ATF can't make rules, therefore don't follow them, you won't get in trouble. Again, the ATF can't make new laws. Again, the ATF has not made a new law. They have just evaluated a handgun, which now falls into the purview of the 1986 GCA and also the importation ban on non-sporting firearms. Those are laws, and if you are in violation of those laws, you can get in huge trouble. 10 years in prison, $250,000 fines, things like that. So those are real consequences that people can unfortunately fall into if they don't follow these new regulations or new determinations on these laws going forward. Now, people continually make the argument, anti-gun people, on this slippery slope fallacy. Slippery slope fallacy is, and it is a technical logical fallacy, that back when the bump stock thing happened, if I had said, we're opening Pandora's box here because they can just redefine terms to ban things or to get things removed or to impose much tighter regulation or restriction on those items. A lot of people would say that that is a slippery slope. If A occurs, then B will happen. That's an assumption, that's a fallacy, but here we are. This is the next thing that has happened. A lot of pro-2A commentators, YouTube personalities have said this. I said it myself. When you start going down this path, it's not going to stop. Here's an example of the next thing that could happen. The definition of a machine gun says that is any firearm that can fire, be readily restored to fire, and one other provision in there, fully automatic, that's multiple rounds downrange from one single pull of the trigger as long as there's an ammunition source. If we now say that the bump stocks fall within the purview of what a machine gun is, which if you don't buy one from a manufacturer, say you make a bump stock in your basement, that could be a pretty big technical feat. You would have to be very knowledgeable and skilled on the mechanics of what you're making to get it to fit onto your device and function the way a bump stock functions, and the equipment to make it. What would be easier to do would be to drill if you wanted to make a machine gun, to drill a third hole in the receiver of an AR or an AK. And the ATF has viewed a receiver, an AR or AK, with the sear, the third pinhole drilled, but no sear installed. They do call that a machine gun. So under the purview of what a machine gun is defined as, something that can fire or be readily restored to fire and fully automatic, what's to stop the ATF from saying, hey, it is easy or readily doable for most people at home with a simple drill and maybe a vise or a press to drill a third hole in a receiver. A third pinhole in an AR or AK receiver makes a machine gun. Therefore, ARs and AKs as they exist today are readily restorable into machine guns. Therefore, ARs and AKs are machine guns under the NFA. Any AR or AK that was manufactured after 1986 is banned wholesale. Turn it in like they did with the bump stocks. Anything that was manufactured can be proven to have been manufactured prior to 1986 needs to be registered with the NFA, assuming there is an amnesty. There has to be an amnesty there for non-registered items to then be registered. And again, all the president has to do if Biden gets elected or anybody is not have an amnesty. Therefore, all ARs and AKs are banned outright, simply by a redetermination of what an AR or AK is to make it fall under the current existing laws of the NFA. That is the slippery slope, ladies and gentlemen, and that is exactly where we've already been at point A with bump stocks. Here we are at point B with pistols, which is a huge facet of what people own, and then on to potentially point C with other things. That's exactly what could happen. I mean, there's no reason now. The precedent has been set. There's no reason that that can't happen. Again, I don't like to get all conspiratorial here, but keep in mind, this is the road we go down. Also, it's not just with firearms. Let's take the automotive industry, for example. I don't know the laws that govern different things. I know there's like fuel emission laws and noise laws and things like that. What if, and you know, cars are not politicized, which is why this hasn't happened yet. But as soon as it starts getting politicized, like the 1970s and 80s was the war on drugs. I currently think we're in the war on guns. If guns are gone and it's no longer a political issue, there has to be political wedge issues. What if it turns into cars, you know, fatality rates on the highways, which are strong? What if in 2040, you know, cars become the next political issue? You know, we don't need cars that go over 60 miles an hour. What if there were current regulations that said, okay, your car cannot exceed a certain fuel emission level, and those laws do exist, or the manufacturer has to pay large taxes? What if they said, well, any vehicle that can be readily restored to have a fuel emission level over a certain amount, and therefore there's going to be huge taxes, and like Camaros and Corvettes and Mustangs and fast muscle cars and sports cars fall into that. Therefore, the taxes are so high, it keeps the common consumer price out of the market for those things. I mean, that's just really what you can do with the way the bureaucracies in the government is established currently. So, you know, don't be fooled into thinking this is just guns. This is a governmental process, and we as gun owners are currently falling in its net. The thing that's irritating here is all of you guys, me included, have spent so much money under the good faith assumption that these firearms were perfectly legal under the ATF, under the NFA, within our government, within our society. And then now again, just due to the redetermination of a law or a rule or a terminology, all of that is basically stripped away. And, you know, the financial burden, the lack of 2A, you know, us as Americans being able to enjoy the 2A, no matter, I mean, based on how you interpret what is under the purview of the Second Amendment and what isn't. But the fact is, again, people have gone out in good faith to purchase these items. Lots of money was spent, and then not only can you lose that financial interest in your own collection, but you could become a felon, be taken away from your family for 10 years. I mean, this is the country that we are in right now, which is just... it's really disheartening. I mean, that really sucks. It's just, I mean, this goes way beyond firearm ownership. It goes way beyond AR and AK pistols. This is just, this is a country thing. I mean, this is a country thing now. Yeah, you know, again, I don't like to get political about these sorts of things, but I mean, it's just, it's just, you kind of wonder, when does it end, you know, and it never will. Again, as long as things are politicized. So, yeah. Don't really know what else to say about it, but you know, that's kind of my rant on what's going on right now. Again, I don't like to weigh on these topics, but it's just so frustrating. I just came in and after watching what's been going on over the past couple of days, I just wanted to turn on the camera and vent. Again, clear up some stuff at least. You know, again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a lawmaker, you know, I'm not a professional in this area, so please feel free to correct me if I said anything wrong. I'll pin your comment to the top as long as it's a substantiated claim, which is what I always do in all my videos. But anyway, I just wanted to weigh in. Thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed, please let me know. Leave a comment down below. Let's get the conversation going about this thing. Contact your elected officials. I don't even know if that matters anymore, but I would do it. Why not? It won't hurt. Try and get this sort of thing stayed, or at least the determination overturned. And then we really need to do something about this whole reinterpreting, you know, different things different rules, different laws, and also push governments that when they create a law, they have to have the defined purposes of the law, the defined criteria of the item that it's looking to control needs to be within the pages of that law, so it can't be reinterpreted or changed, or at least harder for it to be changed. But what typically happens is these definitions are so vague, they're left wide open for interpretation, and then we end up in issues like this. So here is your perfect backdoor, wide open for a lot more gun control through the process of the ATF redefining things. So here we are in 2020. I'm going to leave you guys off there. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. I will see you next time.